$96,690. That's the BLS median for a US architect. 7 to 10 years to get there from high school graduation. Longer than medical residency. But here's what most videos miss. An AI can design a building. It cannot legally stamp one. That's a statutory moat no other white-collar career has. Let's run the honest math. Real salaries year 1 to year 20, the licensing path step by step, the lifestyle, the burnout, and whether this career still pencils out in 2026. So the career on the table today is architects. Not landscape architects, not naval architects. The BLS calls them architects, except landscape and naval, and they're the ones who design the buildings you live, work, and learn inside. Here's the tension nobody talks about honestly. The prestige is real. Say the word architect at a dinner party and heads turn. But the median wage of $96,690 is roughly what a 3-year-out software engineer pulls at a mid-tier tech firm. So does the math still work? We're going to look at 4 lanes. Salary, year 1 to year 20, the licensing timeline, the AI displacement risk, and the lifestyle reality. No cheerleading, no doom. Let's start with what the job actually is because most videos skip this. An architect is not someone who just draws pretty buildings. A licensed US architect is the professional who takes a client's needs, translates them into a buildable design, makes sure that design complies with every applicable building code, coordinates with structural engineers and mechanical engineers and civil engineers, produces the construction documents a contractor bids on, and then monitors the build to make sure what gets built matches what got stamped. The day-to-day changes dramatically based on where you work. At a design boutique, think a small 15-person studio chasing award-winning projects. You're going to spend long nights on schematic design with hand sketches and physical models, refining a concept for months. The hours are brutal, and the portfolio is gorgeous. At a corporate firm like Gensler or Hoko, the day looks completely different. Gensler is the largest architecture firm in the world by revenue, with over 50 offices, and Hawk has 24 offices and dominates healthcare, aviation, and workplace design. At firms like these, you're likely on a team of 20 working one slice of a massive project. Maybe you own the curtain wall details on floors 15 through 30 of an office tower, or maybe you run code compliance review for a hospital expansion. The work is more specialized and the hours are more manageable. At a government architect role, a state facilities department, a federal agency, a city planning office, you're probably closest to a genuine 40-hour week. The projects are less glamorous and the ceiling is lower, but the stability is the highest in the profession. Across all 3, the real tasks look similar. Schematic design, design development, BIM documentation in Revit, code compliance review, specifications writing, client presentations, site visits during construction called construction administration or CA, and meetings. A lot of meetings. If you picture architecture as lone genius sketching at a drafting table, that's the movie version. The real version is collaborative, technical, and deeply regulated. Now let's talk about the path, because this is where careers get won or lost. There are 2 main routes to becoming a licensed US architect. Both end at the same place, they just take slightly different roads. Path A is the 5-year Bachelor of Architecture. It's a NAB-accredited professional degree, and NAB is the National Architectural Accrediting Board. You enroll at 17 or 18 and graduate at 22 or 23 with a professional degree, which means you can go straight into the experience phase. Cornell and UC Berkeley both offer top-rated 5-year B.Arch programs. Path B is the 4+2 or 4+3 route. You do a 4-year pre-professional Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science in Architecture or a related field, then add a 2 to 3-year Master of Architecture, called an M.Arch. Harvard Graduate School of Design, MIT School of Architecture and Planning, and Yale School of Architecture are the heavy hitters here. Total time is 6 to 7 years of school, and the upside is a graduate credential and access to top design research. After school comes AXP, the Architectural Experience Program, run by NCARB, the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards. You have to log 3,740 supervised hours across 6 experience areas. Project development is the largest bucket at 1,520 hours. Project planning and design is 1,080. Project management is 360. Construction and evaluation, another 360. Programming and analysis is 260. And practice management rounds it out at 160. In the real world, at 40 hours a week, that's roughly 2 to 3 years. Most candidates take 3. Then there's the ARE, the Architect Registration Examination, version 5. 6 divisions, each one costs $257. Total exam cost $1,542. And here's the number NCARB doesn't put on the front page. Between 36 and 38% of candidates who start the ARE stop before finishing all 6 divisions. First attempt pass rates run between 50 and 65%, depending on the division. Then your state has its own layer. California, for example, requires the NAB degree, completed AXP, all 6 AR divisions, and the California Supplemental Exam called the CSE. Other states have their own wrinkles. Then there's continuing education, roughly 12 health, safety, and welfare AIA learning units every year. Forever. Total time from age 18 to your first stamped drawing set? 7 to 10 years. 7 if you fly through the B.Arch path. 10 if you take the M.Arch route and take longer on AXP and the ARE. Longer than a medical residency, and you're still the junior person in the room at the end of it. Okay, let's talk money. This is where families need honesty. Year 1 to 3, you're a graduate architect or intern architect, pre-license, earning somewhere between $45,000 and $65,000. In Texas, that's closer to the middle. In New York City, it's closer to the top of that range. In the Midwest, closer to the bottom. You're drowning in student debt if you went private, you're logging AXP hours, and you're studying for the ARE on weekends. Year 5, roughly, you've passed the ARE and you're newly licensed. Congratulations! Your salary jumps to $65,000 to $85,000. That stamp you just earned is worth real money. Year 10, you're a project architect now, running your own projects, managing junior staff, and clients know your name. $85,000 to $110,000. Year 15, associate or senior project architect. $110,000 to $140,000. At this stage, your firm is deciding whether you're going to be pushed toward equity partnership or whether you've hit your lane. Year 20 plus, principal or partner. $140,000 to $200,000, and the top of that range is much higher at firms like SOM, Skidmore Owings, and Merrill, the firm behind One World Trade Center, Willis Tower, and the Burj Khalifa. Principals there, and at firms like Gensler, earn well into the mid-6 figures, sometimes more. The BLS median sits at $96,690. That's the middle. Half earn more, half earn less. Geography matters enormously. In New York City, at firms like SOM, KPF, or the Gensler NYC office, mid-career architects land between $110,000 and $160,000. In Austin or Dallas, that same experience earns $85,000 to $115,000. In Chicago or Columbus, $75,000 to $105,000. Cost of living eats some of that gap, but not all of it. Here's the honest comparison. A 4-year computer science graduate at a mid-tier tech company is often at $100,000 plus by age 23. A 9-year path architect is at $65,000 to $85,000 at the same age. That gap is real, and that gap is the central question of this video. But we're about to flip that gap on its head, because here's the contrarian insight. The 7 to 10-year path feels like the catch, and most people frame it as the downside. It is actually the mute. There's a famous thread on the architecture subreddit where someone wrote that architecture is spiritually fulfilling but not economically satisfying. And that's honest. It's a line a lot of architects would agree with. But look closer at why it stays spiritually fulfilling. Every other white-collar profession that used to have a similar economic gap, graphic design, copywriting, legal research, is now being chewed on by AI. Hard. Architecture is not. And the reason is almost entirely structural. The same licensing arc that makes the first 7 years financially painful is the exact reason this job is still standing in 2026. That's a trade. A painful early career in exchange for a statutory moat that very few professions have. Whether it's a trade you want is a different question, but let's understand the moat. Here's the legal fact at the core of it. Only a state-licensed architect can stamp and seal construction documents in all 50 US states. That's statute, not custom, not convention. A judge cannot override it. An insurance carrier cannot override it. A software company cannot override it. If a building is going to be permitted, inspected, and occupied in the United States, a licensed architect has to put their personal seal on the drawings and assume professional liability for them. An AI model cannot assume professional liability. It cannot be sued. It cannot lose its license. It cannot be deposed in a courtroom when a balcony collapses. That human accountability is why the stamp exists in the first place. So what will AI automate inside architecture? A lot. Photorealistic rendering is already mostly automated, with Midjourney and Stable Diffusion generating presentation-quality visuals in minutes. Repetitive BIM documentation is being compressed, code compliance checking is getting faster, and generative design option exploration, where you feed the AI constraints and it produces 100 massing options, is already in tools like Autodesk Generative Design. Energy and sustainability modeling is getting dramatically cheaper. What will AI not do? It will not stamp the drawings. It will not sit across from a confused hospital client and figure out what they actually need versus what they said they needed. It will not stand on a rainy job site and make the judgment call about whether a framer poured the slab wrong. It will not interpret a vague code section in a jurisdiction that's never ruled on your specific condition. It will not lead a design team through a 3-year project when the client's CEO gets fired halfway through. And it will not carry the liability. The Royal Institute of British Architects, RIBA, reported in a 2024 AI survey that 62% of UK architects already use AI tools in their practice. Think about that framing. Adoption is already above half, and nobody serious is talking about elimination. Autodesk, which builds the software most architects use, wrote in 2026 that AI in architecture enhances design efficiency, but its effectiveness still depends on the architect's expertise. That's not marketing fluff, that's the business model. AI is a tool in this profession, not a replacement. Replacement risk, honestly assessed, is low. Now the catch, because no career is all upside, and HJ doesn't pretend otherwise. Burnout in architecture is real, and it is documented. A 2021 Monograph State of Burnout survey found that 96.9% of architects reported experiencing burnout in their career. That is not a typo. 96.9%. DZine, the major architecture publication, ran a working conditions survey in 2025 that documented low pay, long working hours, and high stress across the industry. This is a known issue, and the profession talks about it openly. Second catch, the ROI in years 1 through 7 is among the worst of any licensed profession relative to the debt you're carrying and the hours you're putting in. If you borrowed $150,000 for a private M.Arch, you're servicing that loan on a $55,000 intern salary while working 55 hours a week. That math is brutal, and you will watch college friends in engineering and tech blow past you in earnings for most of a decade. Third catch, geographic compression. A Midwest architect 5 years into licensure may earn less than a 3-year-out computer science engineer in the same city. The salary ladder in this profession rises slowly. It also rises steadily, but slowly is the word that matters in the early years. Fourth catch, that 36 to 38% age. Our dropout rate is not just a statistic, it's families. It's people who went to school for 5 or 6 years, logged 3,000 plus supervised hours, and then could not get over the exam finish line. Every one of those stories is someone who paid the tuition but did not collect the stamp. None of this is doom. It's just real. These are each a 15-minute conversation at the dinner table, not a reason to run screaming from the field, just a reason to go in with eyes open. So who is architecture actually a fit for? Someone who loves spatial problem solving, someone who walks into a building and notices how the light falls, where the stairs go, why the lobby feels tight or generous. Someone who can tolerate a multi-year exam grind without quitting halfway. Someone who can survive long hours in the early career without resenting it. Someone who cares about the built environment enough to stay when the money is slower than in software. Who should look somewhere else? Someone whose #1 driver is maximum salary per year of training. If that's the metric, civil engineering is a better 4-year ROI. Computer science is a better 4-year ROI. Actuarial science is a better 4-year ROI, and nursing is a faster path to a 6-figure wage. There's no shame in any of that. Architecture is not the best career. It is one career, a specific one with a specific trade-off. If you're a student watching this yourself, here's a question worth sitting with. Would you still want to do this work if the stamp paid $60,000 forever? Because for the first 5 to 7 years, it does. The people who stay are the ones who would. Now for the tactical part. If you're a parent watching this with a 9th to 11th grader who's talking about architecture, here's what to actually do this week. Not next year. This week. First, ask your teen which 2 of these 4 priorities matter most to them. Salary, creative autonomy, stable hours, or AI-proof career. The honest answer tells you whether architecture fits. If salary is #1, you have a conversation to have. If creative autonomy and AI-proof are the top 2, architecture just moved up the list. Second, shadow a licensed architect for 1 day at a local firm. I don't mean a tour. I mean 8 hours sitting in the office watching the actual work. Your local AIA chapter can often coordinate this. The American Institute of Architects is at AIA.org, and most chapters welcome high school shadowing requests. Third, print out a 9-year timeline together, age 18 to age 27. Put the milestones on it. Year 4, B.Arch. Graduation. Year 7, AXP complete. Year 9 or 10, last R division passed, first stamp. Looking at that on paper, with your kid, with a real age next to each milestone, is the single most grounding thing you can do. Fourth, spend 15 minutes on ncarb.org checking your state's specific licensure requirements, not general ones. Yours. California adds the CSE, other states have quirks. And 15 minutes saves years of confusion. Fifth, decide now, B.Arch path or M.Arch path. That decision happens at 17 or 18 when they pick a college. If they enroll in a 4-year pre-professional program without realizing it, they've locked themselves into the 6+ year path. Know which one before applications go in. Here's the question for the comments. If you had to pick between a 9-year path to a stamped architect license and a 4-year path to a computer science degree, which would you pick? For yourself or for someone you love? And why? Drop your pick below. I read every comment in the first 48 hours, and that's where the best of this conversation happens.